Hello, you're here for the Aspiring Speakers Talk for the 7th of October 2025. I'm Alex McLintock. I'm not Barry Cranford. It's Barry's account, but I'm Alex McLintock. And I stepped in for Anthony and Carly, who couldn't be here today, to host. And the reason why Anthony asked me was because he knew I was going to be here because I'm actually doing a talk as well. Who knows if I'll be able to do both things at the same time. Um, so thank you very much. Today we have three talks. They're all lightning talks, around 10 minutes. I'll be trying to keep them below 10 minutes with questions, but the questions may extend a bit longer. We have me, Alex McLintock, Diana Nanuti, and Isaac Oldwood. And I'll let them introduce their own talks later on. What else can I tell you? So this whole Aspiring Speakers thing is sponsored by RecWorks. RecWorks are a recruitment agency. Basically, Barry Cranford created a whole bunch of community forums and groups, and this is one of them. And we're very thankful for his support in the supplying a Zoom account and also some bit of publicity as well. So thank you very much. Um, I expect that we should have a little time at the end. So if anybody is ready to give a lightning talk, please give me a shout and maybe say something in the chat. Let's see if I can duplicate that. Um, So if somebody could shout out in the chat if you're willing to give a talk at the end, and we'll see what we can do. If not, then what we'll do is we'll just leave the time at the end for any extra criticism, feedback. Please try and make it positive feedback so that we can actually do something constructive with what you're saying. Um, so in the chat, there is a link for an Airtable should you wish to volunteer a talk for a future event. I'm afraid I don't know when the next one's going to be. We shall see how it goes. It largely depends on how many talks we have available, I think. Right, I think I better shut up. I'm going to just check we don't have a waiting room. So we've got 13 participants. I've got a small favor to ask, which is that if you can switch on your video, if you're listening, I think it really helps some of the speakers to actually get a bit of visual feedback of how their talk is doing. But if you can't do that, don't worry about it. Let's see. So again, this talk's going to be recorded. I don't know precisely when it'll be available online, but it should be. Diana, I forgot to ask, would you mind please telling me 1 minute when I've reached 9 minutes? Is that's all right?
Okay.
All right. I'm just going to, of course, me being the host, I'm the least prepared one. So, so I think we're going to start off with the first talk, which is Alex McLintock. Oh, that's me. Let's see if I can share. So hopefully you should be able to see my screen. Could you comment or wave or say something? Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Great. Hello, I'm Alex McLintock, as I may have said several times already, and this talk is about Obsidian, my favorite note-taking tool. I am a architect, a freelance architect of data platforms, and normally when I say that, the reason is because I'm going to talk about a data subject, but this time it's not really a data subject. All I'm trying to do is tell you that I study a lot and I talk to people and I need to make lots of notes. So what do we do normally? If you're like me, you went to university, you wrote an awful lot of things down on paper, and then you had lots and lots of bits of paper. Can I just point out? Yeah, I have lots of bits of paper still. And unless you went to university very recently, you may not have come across Obsidian. So how do we organize these papers? Well, of course, the original way was just with ring binders, but as you get more advanced, you might create spreadsheets, databases. A CRM tool is great for recording who you meet and all interactions with people. Um, Something that's always appealed to me is a document scanner to try and record those letters and things like that. But in reality, I typically created a wiki for random facts related to a particular topic. A personalized system would be nice. So this is where you find Obsidian, obsidian.md. And things to know are that it's free software, it's cross-platform, and fundamentally, what it helps you do is to write notes in the Markdown format. Markdown is very popular with techies, and it's quite often used for documentation. There are lots of plugins to enhance the system, and that means that it can be as simple or as complicated as you want. You can just stick with the core technology, or you can say, oh, well, this particular feature is very important to me. I want to enhance that. Let's look at some of those features. So with the plugins, there are core plugins supplied by the writers of Obsidian, but also some community plugins. So examples here are ways of creating presentations from within your notes. There's a fancy advanced tables, which we'll talk about a bit later, and checklist for an example. No way am I going to list all of these. So we'll start off with just a basic list. So if you look at the markdown source, this is typically what you'll see. You'll see square brackets introducing hyperlinks to other notes, which don't necessarily have to exist yet. But here we've got a star, square bracket, space, square bracket, and then some text to introduce a list. Now that's fine as it is, but what it really comes out, it looks a bit neater in a reading view. And this Obsidian does have this dual editing and reading view modes. Let's see. So one of the most important things is that I meet an awful lot of people, and I need to keep track of who they are, what they're doing, and things like that. So here's an example of an event I went to. I was at Big Data London a week or so ago, and I met a few people that I wanted to record that and try and write something about them. In this case, I haven't written about the companies, but have mentioned something about the individual people, and also just recorded the fact that I met some ex-colleagues and other people that I know. Let's look at an example. So here's a person you may have heard of, Barry Cranford. He's a person, you've got a tag here for that. He's a recruitment agent. Now, I've chosen that I need to track who is a recruitment agent, so I've included this as a tag here, and some sort of text about what I've met. You might have activity logs as well of all your interactions with such a person. If you click on a particular tag, you'll see other pages with similar sort of tags, and that could be very useful for linking. Here's another example. In this particular page, I wanted to introduce a hyperlink, and it pops up with the recent pages that were created, so that it's nice and easy to fill in that hyperlink. Another possibly of interest feature is this networking tool that lets you try and understand and visualize the links between notes. Here's a particular one for aspiring speakers where I've recorded different events and some of the people involved. Now, in Markdown, what we typically do to create tables is create these ASCII charts, and this is a right pain. It's really not very easy. So there's an advanced tables plugin that lets you manipulate these tables in the same sort of way as you might do with a spreadsheet or a word processor. So it looks all nice and neat later on and is easier to manipulate. Search, of course, it exists. It's not great, particularly if you're using a term that appears in lots of pages. Never mind. So here I search for Carly. Now, it's important to realize that almost all of these notes are in fact just files. They're markdown files, and you probably want some way of organizing them. One of the standards that I tried to follow was this para, which stands for projects, areas, resources, and archives. And the idea being that each note you create goes in one of those directories. So let's try and summarize. Obsidian MD, that's where you want to get it from. Here's what I've told you before. It's free, it's markdown, lots of plugins. It's free, but it's not free open source. You can't go and grab the software and modify it. You can only create your own plugins. Syncing between devices is not easy. What I've done is I've used pCloud and SyncThing. pCloud is a bit like Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that. And so I've got it set up so that I can share my same data sources, my database, the markdown files on my Android tablet, my Linux desktops, and my Mac laptops, and they all get synced up every so often. It's best for single users. You can use it for teams. You can do the syncing like I just suggested, but I'm not terribly impressed with that sort of facility. And of course, not everybody likes Markdown. It's mostly suitable for techies, but yeah, I suppose other people could use it as well. I mentioned the search is not great. So thank you very much for your time. Please contact me should you wish to ask me any questions. Of course, we can ask questions after that. Obsidian is available through obsidian.md or just Google for it. You'll probably find it with no problem. And thank you very much to Benoit Dessachaux for the image at the beginning. And I think at 7 minutes 30, I'm going to stop there. Thanks very much. Does anybody have any questions? Deathly silence. Can everybody unmute themselves? Can anybody unmute themselves in order to go for it? Claudius, you have a question?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Hi. I was just curious. I've used Obsidian before, but I end up giving up on it because I felt I wasn't really using many of the plugins. But one thing that caught my attention was when you mentioned the presentation mode. Have you used it before? How like straightforward is it to go from like
Well,
Obsidian to say slides?
so I was thinking about demonstrating that. The funny thing is, I have actually given an aspiring speaker's talk using a presentation built with Obsidian. So now I think basically the thing to realize is that if it's a very, very simple talk where all you want is text and you're just throwing it up on the screen and you don't care about the appearance, you don't care about any kind of graphic design or anything like that, it's fine. It's great. It's if you are doing a proper professional looking talk, then it's not really the thing for you.
Mm,
Um, and I would also say I don't worry about not using many of the plugins. I mean, I wasn't sure how many to include. So for things like the tables one, well, as soon as you really start needing a table, probably use a specialized tool. Um, I think it's the most important thing for me is that I am not a person. I've tried using proper CRM systems, and this feels so much easier to me. It's not a proper CRM, but it's more natural for the way I work. Hope that helps.
yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to stop there. Uh,
I think
Di
there's more question from Stefan.
Thank you very much. Stefan, do you want to quickly ask your question?
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, so I was wondering what was the killer feature that made you passionate about Obsidian rather than other tools?
Well, it's not so much a feature, but it's achievement or thing that it enabled me to do, and that was have a conversation with somebody and quickly recall what we talked about 12 months ago and the summary of the conversation and um, what my conclusion was. And no other tool has really been able to do that for me. Now, obviously, if you are running your own CRM and you are recording every single conversation and summarizing it, yeah, okay, that will do that. But this was the first time I was able to do it, because it was easy. So, it's not so much that there is a killer feature, just that it's easy. So thank you very much for the question.
Great, thanks.
I think I better shut up. Any more questions, please ask me later. Thank you very much. Diana, would you mind giving us a shout and saying, are you ready?
Sure. I hope it's visible.
I can see it fine. Let me shut
Okay,
up.
let me just check the navigation. Okay, it works. Cool. Then we can get started. Hi, everyone. I am Diana. I'm a senior software engineer at Chainalysis, and I'm here today to talk to you about navigating the tech job market. This talk was inspired by my personal experience, as last year I changed my job, and as well the experience of other colleagues and friends that I helped secure new jobs during this past year. Before jumping on what we can improve, I want to talk firstly about the elephant in the room. If you've been applying for jobs online with little success, you may be missing a key insight. Roughly 70% of jobs are never advertised publicly. Yet, most job seekers spend 90% of their time applying online. This is called by World Business Network News as the hidden job market. These positions are usually filled through referrals, internal hires, personal networks, meaning that they are not available through traditional job boards. So, if you're feeling frustrated by your job search, it's likely because you're focusing too much on public listings. What we aim to do in this session is to shift your approach, providing you with practical strategies that will help you to tap into this hidden job market. By the end, you'll be equipped to stand out, to leverage your network, and to secure roles in today's rapidly evolving tech landscape. First, you need to understand this landscape. What is the job market's direction? What are the trends shaping the market? Is it AI? Is it remote work or perhaps return to office trend? Are there layoffs currently occurring, rehiring cycles, or just a shifting skills demand? You need to understand that, and you need to understand how you fit in that landscape. Then you should ask yourself what companies are really looking for. And this isn't just about technical skills. It's also about adaptability. It's also about communication, problem solving, resilience, any kind of transferable skill across jobs, and why not across industries. How much hiring happens in the hidden job market? We need to understand this because employers now are playing it safely. They prefer trusted recommendations over sorting through hundreds of anonymous applications. So referrals carry a major weight. In fact, referred candidates are about 4 times more likely to be hired than those applying through job boards. Once we understand the current status of the job market, we need to learn how to position ourselves for success. The question you need to ask yourself is, how do I stand out? And standing out starts with knowing your strengths. Begin by auditing your skills, your technical skills, and your soft skills, and understand what sets you apart. Perhaps you are an expert in an exotic programming language, or a certain framework, or a tool that you can use better than no other. Or you have strong soft skills that maybe could move you forward for a leadership role. Maybe you are very strong in collaboration. Maybe you are very adaptable. Of course, Isaac should also have some cool insights about agile, for example, that we will find in the next talk. And then you need to make those trends visible through a clear personal brand. Build a portfolio, being it on GitHub if you're a software engineer, or on Notion, or maybe Obsidian, like um, we've seen in Alexander's talk, and highlight the impact that you had at every job on your LinkedIn profile. Of course, you need to also tailor each application to show why you are the best fit for the role. Emphasize relevant skills and achievements. And finally, network with intention, not randomly. Build meaningful connections with communities that share your interests, and keep in mind that standing out isn't about being everywhere. It's about being authentic, it's about being focused, and it's about being visible where it matters the most. Now, let's talk about what happens once you hit that apply button. Well, you should keep track of your applications, date, status, how you've applied, being it on LinkedIn, on company website, or perhaps a referral. What are the contact points for that company? When do you expect a reply? When should you follow up? And here is another example where maybe you could leverage Obsidian that Alexander just presented. Most companies use applicant tracking systems, called also ATS, shortly, to filter the applications before a human even looks at them. These systems scan for keywords, skills, and simple formatting. So you should use a clean text-based layout, no tables, no graphics. Match the language of the job post. If it says data analysis in Python, then that's what you should include. That phrase exactly, you should include it in your resume. Then focus on your measurable impact. You should say that you improve the API response by 40%, not just that you improve the API response time. That helps you stand out once your CV reaches a recruiter. Research in advance the interview structure. You need to know exactly how to tailor your answers in order to fit what they actually want to hear. And finally, let's say that you reached the point of getting the offer. Don't hesitate to negotiate it. Research market ranges, Glassdoor levels FYI industry reports. Express enthusiasm for receiving the offer, obviously, but discuss that compensation confidently. Anchor your ask in market data and value. For example, you could just say, based on my experience and research delivering X project, I believe a range around Y is fair. And remember that negotiation is a conversation, it's not a conflict. As you navigate the tech job market, keep in mind that you don't just chase jobs. You should aim for building a career ecosystem around you. Your skills, your network, your reputation all work together to create opportunities for you. And treat interviewing like any other skill. Don't beat yourself up. It's a skill that you can learn, you can practice, and you can master over time. Leverage your friends, leverage your colleagues, do mock interviews, prepare properly for the interview structure that the job you applied to has. And most importantly, remember that you are not just being evaluated, you are also evaluating them. You're choosing the environment where you will grow next. So approach every step with confidence and curiosity, because this journey is as much about finding the right fit as it is about getting the job. This was all that I had in mind for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Diana. I enjoyed that. I wish you'd told me this 20 years ago.
Thank you.
Can I ask, does anybody have any questions for Diana?
I
Go for
I
it.
would like to ask them. Yeah. Diana, thank you for the presentation. It was very good. I wanted to ask just one thing. Well, two things actually. Have you encountered, I don't know if you, what's your feeling about the AI generated profiles and things like, not AI, LLM generated profiles and things like that, like CVs and the jargon that they use, especially because you mentioned about the measurable outcomes. And I think lots of engineers sometimes have, it's like a learning process to go from what you deliver on a daily basis to how that impacts the business, and how can you turn that into a measurable thing. There's a lot of advice about, oh, maybe you can use AI for that, but from my experience, it turns out that you end up with almost like when you have a code smell, you end up with like an AI smell on these profiles. And I don't know if you've encountered many of these and how it was.
Yeah, I'm gonna take them like separately. So first of all, in the AI side of things, I find it useful, for example, for rephrasing. Perhaps if you are not, let's say, a native English speaker like I am, perhaps I want to phrase it more formally. But I wouldn't like use it to sort of like stretch the experience or like to invent things essentially. And I believe that if you are more authentic, it's better for you on the long run. Regarding how you can quantify the impact, that's something I learned in the past couple of years. Essentially, that's not always visible. It depends on the company that you are. But what I try to ask myself is, first of all, how do I define the customer at the visibility of the level that I am? Maybe the customer is a team, maybe the customer is the end user. So how do I define that customer? And then for a feature or a bug fix that I deliver, let's say it's a bug fix that I delivered, then how you can quantify an impact, for example, if it's for an end user. If that end user was impacted by the bug, then you can define metrics, for example, to track their, let's say, workload. And if after your bug fix they would increase their workload, that will translate eventually into money. You don't have access to the sum, but you have access to the metric showcasing that they increase their workload. So that's the impact of your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudius, for a great question. I can't see anybody else with any questions. Please speak up if I've missed you. If not, we're going to pass control over to Isaac. Dinah, are you okay with that?
Yes, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Let's get this screen. Is that working?
All good.
Cool, and then navigation is working. Brilliant. Thank you for coming to my talk. So we're going to talk about how to build a red car the correct agile way, because the word agile gets thrown around a lot. So what does that mean? First of all, credit where credit is due. There's a great guy called Henrik, and he wrote a blog post called Making Sense of MVP and Why I Prefer Earliest Testable, Usable / Lovable. If you haven't read it, go read this blog post. This is basically what the whole talk's about. Most of the information is from there, and it really kind of changed the way that I kind of think about agile. And when people tell me that they're doing agile, and I go, well, I'm not quite sure I agree with you. So here's some context. This is you, we're a software engineer. And here is your client / stakeholder / person. Now, the powers that be, or people that don't quite understand agile, will tell you the way this works is as a conversation. It goes, hey, I want a big red car. And as an engineer, you go, brilliant, all good, we'll see you when it's done. So we go away and we go, hey, look, we're software engineers, we use agile, and we're going to do this. We want to get to this big red car, and we're going to break it down into sprints. So in our first sprint, we're going to build a car wheel. And that's not really usable, but that's okay, because we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Then in the second sprint, we're going to build another wheel, and we're going to attach it to the chassis. And well, I still can't do anything, but we're going to get there. We're going to get to the red car. And then in the third sprint, well, look, we're going to attach a body to it. That's brilliant. You know, we're almost there. We're almost to a finished product. And then in the last sprint, we get there. We add some steering, we add a roof, and we go, hey, look, we've just built this in an agile way. We've split our product into sprints, and now we can go and deliver it to our client. And then in 2 weeks' time, the client's going to go, oh, actually, I know I said I wanted a red car, but I actually wanted a blue motorbike. And that's because of X, Y, and Z. And although you've given me the solution I asked for, that doesn't actually solve the problem I wanted to solve. So how do we do this in the right way? Same setup. Here's you, you're a software engineer, and you've still got a client. Now the client comes to you and says, I want a big red car, just like before. Now, what you're going to say is ever so slightly differently, and you're going to say, that's fantastic. I want to build your big red car, but I want to understand why. And that will make all the difference to your workflow, because they're going to come back and say, hey, I want to get from A to B faster. Now, what this allows you to do is to solve the problem that they're actually trying to solve. So many clients will come up to you and go, I want solution X, because in their head, they've got, problem X and that's solution X. But actually, they've got problem X, but that's better solved by solution Y. Or they don't know what they want, but they've just seen it on ChatGPT spit out that they want a red car. So now they're going to go and ask for a red car. So instead, you need to basically take a step back and go, why? What's the context? Well, I want to get from A to B faster. So how do we help our client get from A to B faster? Well, the first thing we do is we go away and we figure out, what can I do to get from A to B faster? Well, I can give you a skateboard. Now, a skateboard isn't a big red car, and eventually we might get to a big red car, but this will get you from A to B faster. And the key point here is we can go and take this to the client and say, hey, I know this isn't a big red car, but try this out for a little bit and let me know what you think about it. What do you think we need to improve? And we still might end up in a big red car, but we'll get there. And they go away and they try it for a little bit and they go, hey, this is way too hard to steer and I keep falling off it. And you go, brilliant. In my next sprint, I'm going to add some steering to it. Well, now you've got a scooter, and a scooter's still not a car, but hey, now they can steer and they can get from A to B a bit faster. And then they go away and they try that for a little bit. And then they go, oh, the wheels are too small. And I keep getting stuck in drains and those weird little cattle grids and I keep flying off. So what can we do about that? And you go, brilliant. Well, let's make the wheels a bit bigger. Now I've got a red bike and I can get from A to B even faster than a scooter. It's more stable, I'm getting there quicker, and I can handle more things. And they go, oh, my legs are getting tired. I'm cycling across London to get to my meetings and I am getting there quicker than walking, but I'm getting there all sweaty and my legs are all tired and I can't focus in my meeting. So you go, okay, well, let's attach an engine to the bike. So now you're getting from A to B even faster, your legs aren't tired, and you've got to find somewhere to park it, but we'll get over that. And they go, brilliant, I'm getting there even faster, but I need more stability and I need some wind protection. Okay, yes, I'm getting there faster and my legs are now not tired, but I'm getting flies in my eyes and I'm turning up, all windswept and my tires behind here. So you go, fantastic, let's add some more features. Well, now we've got a red car still, but we've got a windscreen. You'll notice we haven't got a roof on this one. Maybe sprint 6s they go, hey, look, it's England, it's always raining, I need to add a roof, but we'll deal with that further down the line. Either way, you've still ended up with a red car. But along the way, we've got buy-in at every single stage from the client. So when you get to the end, they know how to use the product. They're happy to use it. It's been molded to fit the solution they actually need, as opposed to the previous way. They come back and go, oh, this doesn't actually work at all the way I need it to. Now, the skateboard's brilliant, but can we go even earlier? In the context of startups, perhaps, we've got a runway of not very long and we need to get something out there. But look, we've got this amazing idea that's going to change the world and we're going to scale up and have 1,000 clients and 1 million users and everything's going to be brilliant, but we don't have the money to get there yet. So what can we do? How can we start even earlier? Well, maybe you need what we're going to call a bus ticket. So you might not be able to get from every A to every B faster, but maybe you can get from 1A to 1B a bit faster. Is there a third-party service you can use to at least start getting something into a single client's hands to start getting feedback and figuring it out? And yeah, in this case, it could be a bus ticket, it could be a bus trip. Now, this is great, Isaac. I understand Agile. Agile's fantastic, but realistically, no one actually uses Agile in this way because there's no time or whatever. So some people might recognize this game. Hopefully you do. It's like the most best-selling game of all time or something. Anyway, this is the original, well, one of the very first alpha builds. This was released by the creator in 2009 on TIG Source. Then he basically said, look, I've got this game, I find it quite fun, but I don't really know where to go next with it. I want to see what the users want. I'm not going to go and spend a bazillion pounds building a AAA game or a reskin of COD again and just like hope everyone likes it. I'm just going to put it out there and go, hey, look, here's a game, try it out, let me know your feedback. And that's exactly what he did. Over 2 years, the creator basically worked with the community. They said, hey, look, we want more tools, we want more monsters, we want a whole new evil dimension. And that's what they added. And then in 2011, we had the adventure update, which was version 1 was released. Now, obviously, we're 14 years later and we're still using community polls to work out what the community want. Every time there's an update, they put out a poll and they go, look, you're the users, you're in charge. We want to add features that you want to use. How can we do that? And that's the feedback we get. So that's a real example of it being used in the real world. So what are the key takeaways? Like I said, avoid the big bang delivery. Don't do it all in 6 months. Don't go away and spend 2 weeks building a design document and then spend 6 months building a product and then deliver it all to the client. Do it iteratively and incrementally. Do it little by little. You need to work out what the you need to work out what your skateboard is, or even your bus ticket. You know, what is your earliest testable product? And this comes into point 3. Try and avoid the term MVP to start with. And what I mean by that is you have to be clear to your stakeholders. You don't have to always start with an MVP. You can go, look, here's a piece of software. It's a UI. It's not tied into the database. It is, you know, just something you can point and click about on. It is the earliest testable thing I can give you. It doesn't work, but I just want to hear your feedback. And in that way that you can start getting buy-in early and let them guide their feature creation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Isaac. That was fascinating.
Thank
Does
you.
anybody have any questions?
Hi,
Go for it.
I do.
Thanks, Claudius. You're being very active today.
Yes, I mean, don't know what's happening. I just seem to have a lot of questions
We
today.
we love people like you.
Yeah, question's good. It shows me some engagement. You know, not everyone's turned off in my talk.
By the way, thank you for the presentation. It was very good, as well as all the presentations. They have been brilliant. So one thing I wanted to, I'm curious about is, this is a really good analogy, actually. I'm already planning to use mention of the red car and the earliest testable, usable, lovable. But I'm thinking, what would you say, in maybe in your experience or maybe in other case studies you've seen, is the right scale for this analogy? Like, it maybe my stakeholder, my customer in this case, is not really directly my customer, and I'm not really prototyping for them. Maybe I'm working on a legacy with a legacy code base, and they're actually asking us to add a new feature to something that has already a lot of unknowns. And maybe the engineers themselves don't have direct access to the stakeholders. Everything gets filtered by, some layer. In this case, have you seen cases like these? Like, and if so, would you say this is how would we adapt to a case like that? Or maybe this is just not the best place for this kind of analogy. What scale of a business then would be? I mean, aside from the obvious early startup stage where you're prototyping.
Yeah, sure. I think this definitely lends itself more to new projects. I'm working in variously sized organizations, and it definitely tends to be more about, oh, look, I want this new portal, this new application, this new automation, and it definitely seems to work better, in terms of like, hey, look, this doesn't work the whole thing, but we can deliver you, a vertical slice of it now. Partly, it depends how you can break it down. I think when we're talking about like legacy systems, sometimes there are these monoliths that have no tests and you're not quite sure what it even does. If you can start with like any single piece of functionality, or like some slice one way or the other, the way you can get like a little bit of an input and a little bit of an output, then great, start there. It's more about kind of breaking it down into actual pieces that kind of do something, as opposed to just, generic car tires. So yes, I appreciate that it's not a perfect analogy, and there are definitely other ways to kind of dice it up. In terms of getting it from like different layers, I think you might, your stakeholder or client in this person might be your product owner or whatever they're called these days. It's like, hey, look, get him in their hands and go, look, you talk to the client. You should have your job is to know what they're looking for essentially. Can you give it a whirl? And again, they might not, or they might be able to give you some feedback, and then they go, oh yeah, they mentioned X, Y, and Z actually in a meeting that they hadn't told you about because something on the screen prompted it. Stuff like that. Yeah, I know that's not an ideal answer. It's not perfect, but it's not a perfect analogy. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
No, definitely does. Thank you very much.
I don't mean to be arguing with that. I think Dav in the chat, we're trying to understand or explain the definition of an MVP. And you had, I think, Isaac, you had an alternative definition of it, or something to use instead. Is there something you can tell us about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose it's I can't remember think of where it actually is on the thing. They talk it's more about in the blog post, Henrik basically says about you still can use the term MVP when you get there, but essentially it doesn't like the first proof of concept or first like here is, a UI with a drop down and a button. And like that's not a viable product. That doesn't add value, but that gives you it's testable, it's usable by the user. And it's just about like maybe that middle word could be slightly different. Maybe it's not a viable product, maybe it's the minimum testable product or the minimal usable product. And it's more about don't necessarily shoehorn everything into like, oh, I need an MVP that works from end to end and connects to our database and everything. And it's like you do need to get there, but maybe you can, start with something else. And yeah, what's the kind of the minimal testable, the earliest testable product, I suppose, again, is another thing they call it. It's just like
I,
get something.
I suppose because you talk about products, I do feel some empathy for the idea that the MVP should be sellable, but I'd also argue that it should at least be useful.
Yeah.
It should at least be working to some extent.
Yes.
I don't want it to be stubbed out, everything stubbed out, only the things that don't really matter straight away.
Yeah, at that point, to me, an MVP is more about something that, you could essentially sell to someone, I guess, I suppose, or maybe not quite that far, but at least is a fully working in some way. Maybe it's got manual steps or it's not quite automated, but it should kind of work.
Putting my host hat on for a second, whenever doing a talk, we should always be aware of who we're giving the talk to. And to be honest, most of us here are techies who've probably heard of MVPs and some of these things. So I don't think it's too bad use of jargon, but always be aware of that.
Yeah, no, that's really good, useful advice.
That's not a criticism of you, Isaac. It's more of just a general note. Really.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Does anybody have any more questions?
I think there's a couple more hands up I can see.
Feel free to unmute yourself. I can't see everybody.
Yes, I have some follow-up questions regarding this MVP and other definitions because we're talking about selling something for our customer, and I was wondering how we can sell a bicycle rather than car. Because for me it could be tricky.
Yeah, definitely. Most of my experiences with internal tools, so I've had less experience there, but I guess you whack a discount on it and you say, hey, look, it's not quite there yet. I feel like a lot of people at the moment are doing sort of like free trials and stuff. Maybe you go that, maybe you go try our product. It's not perfect, it's not there yet, but it might work in your specific use case. I think it's more about being transparent with whoever your client stakeholder person is and goes, hey, maybe we can't sell a red car yet, but we've got a bicycle and we'll keep moving as we can. And maybe they, or maybe they get a discount on the free features added as it grows. I don't know, they get a little bit of buy-in and then their price stays cheaper later down the line. I'm not a salesperson, but I know enough salespeople that could hopefully put a good spin on it.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. Thank you for your presentation, and that was brilliant talks. Thank you to all speakers.
Ken, I can see you've got a hand up, but Dav has been waiting a bit longer, if you don't mind. Dav?
I think you made an interesting point earlier, Alex. It's not really about necessarily being sellable to be an MVP. So in one of the projects I worked on, we were working on some software that's classified as a medical device. And the way a lot of the regulator type people, the people that get us over the regulatory sort of threshold, they seem to love sign-offs in emails. Well, that's not going to work for a lot of people. Not a lot of people that want to be doing continuous delivery and this sort of thing, continuous deployment. So there's what I'm getting at is the regulatory burden. If you sell something to somebody, imagine if it's a car, there's an enormous amount. Making a car as a hobby on your own farm that never touches a road sounds like great fun. But selling a car, there's a lot of lawyers involved in that stops being fun very quickly when you have to worry about traffic accidents and safety standards and all of that. So for me, the tricky part is getting over the hump of, I don't have to worry about somebody else using this. If you're in banking or you're in something that's medical or something that's engineering, if getting over that sort of regulatory hump can be quite challenging.
Yeah, no, I agree. I work in insurance, and a lot of it is like, hey, I want to build something, and you go, right. So the first thing you do is you don't, you build it in a nice air-gapped private thing. You're not going to use any personal data and all that kind of stuff. And then you get something that works, and then you can start introducing all of the compliance bits on top of it. Yeah, I guess. So I hear your concerns.
Yeah, I think you definitely get an easier ride on the internal tools side of things.
Yes, no, I'm well aware of that. So thank you to my bosses for keeping that.
Ken?
Cheers.
Sorry to interrupt. Ken, do you want to ask your question, please?
Yeah, hi, Isaac. Good talk. It's always good to see someone who's willing to take the agile debate on these days. I think it's a hot topic where you've got a lot of detractors out there that will always push back on you. I think some comments, and from my experience around it, I think your first example of the incorrect agile way, I'd say, isn't agile. It's just the incorrect way of building software.
Yeah.
I think when you kind of talked about MVP, particularly, I guess, go back to the question about, how do you deal with a client that necessarily don't want to skateboard? And that is the way that I've worked with teams is to kind of turn the narrative a bit into what is the minimum effort you need to fail. So it might be, I'm not going to build a skateboard. I'm going to sit down with the client and draw a picture of a skateboard. And I think sometimes when you have engineering teams, there is just this absolute drive. I need to build something to show to the customer. And actually you don't. You need to show something that you can test something with your customer.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the best agile projects I've seen have taken actually quite a long time to actually start physically building software. They are just testing ideas in that very early stage. And then you can start to build so that actually when you do deliver something, you're delivering value. You're not delivering something where the client goes, well, that's junk. I don't want that. Try again. Again. Can I try again? So I think you raised some really good points in there. And I think it's not so much question. It's probably just a kudos for, keep banging the agile drum, because there's a huge amount of detractors out there that don't understand it properly. So
no, I appreciate that. No, thank you for your insight.
If we don't have any more questions for Isaac, I had a question in the chat for me, and I think it's relevant to take a few minutes to do that. So thank you very much, Isaac.
Thank you.
So Claudius asked me something about using Obsidian for presentations. And since this is more generic to everybody, I think I'll just spend about 2 or 3 minutes trying to demonstrate that if possible. So let's see if I can share the desktop. Okay, so what you should be seeing is my Obsidian screen with a presentation done as Obsidian notes. So this is a talk that I actually gave. When did I give it? In September last year, about a year ago. And the idea here is that I could just throw down some notes of what I wanted to talk about. And I didn't worry too much about the presentation, the images, or anything like that. I was just thinking, what's the story that I need to tell? How do I set it up? Why do people care? What's the situation? Then, of course, give the information. There's 1 or 2 pieces of important diagrams that I needed to show, and giving the information and summaries at the end and some sort of thank you page. And for me, this is a very quick and easy way of building up a talk without going straight into PowerPoint or whatever and writing it there. And if I very quickly try and do this presentation, so There you go. So it's nothing fancy. Absolutely got no graphic design whatsoever, apart from black on white. And this is basically created from that note. So literally I could create a presentation in 10 minutes, maybe less. And so on and so on and so on. So I hope that helps answer Claudius's question. And I don't know if I'm not be able to keep track of everything on the chat. So I'm afraid we don't have any time for anybody else to do another talk. Nobody's come forward, so that suits me fine. If you want to be involved in this, please come again. Please give feedback to participants, and it really does help actually having an audience. There is an Airtable that you can use to volunteer talks. Please do. It was in the chat. If you can't find it, it should also be in the Meetup event page. The Eventbrite event page, or just give one of us a shout. That would be fine. I think I'm going to finish this off early unless anybody has anything else. Thank you very much for RecWorks for sponsoring the event. Thank you very much to Diana and Isaac for doing talks. I won't thank myself because mine was awful. I don't like mine at all. Thank you very much, everybody.